Social media already having a field day with Randi. She's getting called out left, right, and center. Former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos tweeted, quote, "I bet Randi Weingarten's brothers and sisters in trade unions who didn't take out student loans and are now being asked to pay for the scam are also screaming, 'That is not fair!'" Why is she injecting herself into this conversation? Let's break it down with tonight's party panel. We've got conservative strategist and Z-Lab's vice president of PR, the one and only Chris Baird. How you like my Patrick Kane now, Chris? We've also got radio host, Democrat strategist, and Fox News contributor, the lovely Angelino Leslie Marshall, and director of the Libertarian Institute and Antiwar.com, where he serves as editorial director. It is Scott Horton. There he is. There's everyone. Yay. Chris, I will start with you because you have some skin in the educational game, at least in terms of a family member teaching in Virginia. Why is Randi Weingarten the spokesperson for everything about our failing education system?
I have no idea. As you know, my husband's an 8th grade English teacher here in rural Virginia. You know, Randi could have gotten her fat ass off of the Supreme Court and come over here and seen what her policies have actually done to students, what they've done to teachers, and what they've done to families. We have students right now whose lives have been destroyed because of the policies that Randi Weingarten put in place that defied science, that defied logic. All they did was appease her political masters. And at every single turn, Randi Weingarten has only cared about two things: attention and politics. And that's it. She is like the doctor who's not just bad at his job, but is intentionally trying to kill you on the operating table. Randi Weingarten is an absolute disgrace. And I can't believe there's a single person in this country who would want to put her in front of a megaphone.
Leslie? I kind of agree with Chris there. I don't think she's doing the movement any favors.
As a feminist, he lost me at fat and ass. You know, as a woman, I get tired of our weight and our body parts. But that aside, and I know Randi very well, there were over 20 organizations that stood in front of the microphone and the megaphone, one of which was the NAACP. I also saw tweets online about them, and what do they have to do with education? Or why should they be speaking about education? The reason she's speaking about education is because of her position heading up the AFT, the American Federation of Teachers. And in addition, all of these other groups are supportive of the fight that is before the Supreme Court to have this debt collection for students. And there were just as many groups opposing on yesterday in the Supreme Court. I had people from both sides of my radio show that were there, and there were people that were just as, I wouldn't say unhinged, but certainly were passionate and emotional about their stance on either side.
Passion, I respect passion. I don't respect unhinged emotionalism. I really don't. I think you lose your argument. And, you know, Scott, I don't think there is an argument to be made that 2/3 of the country should be on the hook for education when the federal government, which again has a cartel in terms of student loans, when they're not doing anything to keep costs down.
Right. Look, I mean, there's so many things at issue here. First of all, the reason they're at the Supreme Court is because Biden did all this by fiat when he had no authority whatsoever. And Congress should not have passed those acts that she referred to, but at least Congress passed them, which, you know, caused our massive boom and economic bust crash that we're going through right now. This is absolutely horrible. And then the second thing is, of course, is exactly as you say, that the higher education system in America overall, and there are private schools, but most of them are not, are you know, state schools, but are big business in themselves. And they're essentially, and I know this from driving a cab in Austin, Texas for years, that this is where working class people pay for upper middle class kids to go find spouses. Right. This is where, you know, probably half the people, and that's not all just being sexist male versus female, but it's essentially where daughters of Republicans go to find a husband of their same social class. And then they're going to be a housewife. They got their 4-year degree, and you got people who actually work hard for a living paying. I'm sorry?
Is this 1958? You know, I'm the mother of 2 young girls.
In this century.
The last thing they're going to go to school for is trolling for dudes. You know, they'll find them, but they're going to go and they're going to study things. But yeah, I do agree that we should get the federal government out of this, and schools that are sitting on multi-billion-dollar endowments, they should have to pay people if their degrees are meaningless. And speaking of crazy people, let's go to Chicago, where Almost former Mayor Lori Lightfoot lost last night, a humiliating re-election defeat. She's the first incumbent mayor to lose re-election there since 1983. This after 4 years of skyrocketing crime and urban decay. Lightfoot is blaming, of course, racism and sexism while patting herself on the back. Lori?
I'm grateful that we worked together to remove a record number of guns off our streets, reduce homicides, and started making real progress on public safety. We fought the right fights, and we put this city on a better path. In the end, you don't always win every battle, but you never regret taking on the powerful and bringing in the light.
Did you though? Chicago crime is up across the board. Theft up 39% just since last year. Murder 37%. Carjackings 139% since Lightfoot was elected. This according to police statistics. So how will the new mayor clean this all up? You know, Chris, it's very interesting because she was completely dishonest in that concession speech.
Yeah, you talk about election denialism. 83% of Chicago voters, Chicago overwhelmingly liberal, voted for somebody else not named Lori Lightfoot. And instead of accepting the fact that she didn't meet the challenges, that she wasn't able to do the things that she wanted to do, she immediately turns to racism, bigotry, misogyny, all this other stuff. Look, I mean, again, if 83% of voters vote for somebody else, chances are it's actually your fault, Lori. Chances are it's not bigotry, it's not racism, it's not misogyny, it's that you sucked at being mayor.
Well, Leslie, violent crime is up just over the last 2 years. This is pretty much post-pandemic. Over the last 2 years, it's up 162% in Chicago. You have to admit at some point she was not good.
Well, I can admit a couple of things here. First of all, whenever anybody's leaving, they're not going to say, oh, you know, I suck, I believe is what you just said. Not you, Kennedy. But then secondly, I cringed a little because the gun thing, hey, rah, rah, I thought that was good. But when she said homicide was down, homicide is up. You just rightly said that. So that was not true. Look, you know, if she had done a great job, she wouldn't have come in third. It bothered me because she was elected as a woman and an African-American woman that she would say that as a woman, you know, myself. But, you know, when she said, you know, due to race and, you know, and she implied due to race, Brandon Johnson, who came in second, is an African-American male. So that wouldn't be accurate either. I think, yeah, look, if you succeed and you get reelected, whether you're Democrat or Republican, and you take a victory lap when you're leaving, you definitely tout your successes. But I don't think making excuses, whether somebody is black, white, liberal, or conservative, is the right way to leave.
Yeah, and the city's not safe, Scott. People, they don't like it. I live in a big city. I don't feel safe when I walk around. I wish I did. Whenever I ride the subway, I was thinking about that today because I hold on to one of the big metal columns and stand away from the edge of the platform. There was a guy on the train who smelled so bad, I thought that we had crawled up an elephant's keister. Your thoughts, Scott Horton?
Well, listen, I'm perfectly happy to blame criminals for crimes that they commit, that they're responsible for, and for lousy prosecutors and mayors if they have policies that allow violent criminals to get away with murder while, you know, endlessly harassing regular people over supposed offenses against state edicts. I got no patience for that. But I don't want to sit here and just say what we need is tougher prosecutors and all that. That's not really what's going on here. The larger social forces at play are that Congress, and especially it was the Democratic governors, really, that locked this country down in 2020. And why do you think that gun sales went through the roof? It's not because people thought that they were going to declare martial law to enforce the lockdowns and we were going to war. It's because people knew that all of the people who are lowest on the economic ladder are all going to be forced out of work and into situations of desperation. And as Boots Riley says, crime rise consistent with the poverty rate. And so, you know, we have our government create, first of all, these massive lockdowns. Then they create trillions and trillions of dollars. Some say 2/3 of all the dollars ever created by the U.S. government were just in the last couple of years to try to make up for the crash that they caused with that lockdown.
Unreal.
So now we have We have this huge upward pressure on wages and massive unemployment at a time where the rest of business is doing terrible. And the economy is just completely out of whack, and it's the government's fault.
We don't have massive unemployment. We're pretty well employed right now.
They lie about those statistics.
Well,
they
the labor participation rate, yes, absolutely, but the unemployment rate has dipped. However, we will live to see another day, thank God.